is not only about celebrating books and language, but also fostering connection across cultures, ideas, and perspectives. As part of the UNIFOR's ongoing efforts to promote internationalization at home, we aim to provide an enriching experience that brings global knowledge and diverse viewpoints to our academic community. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ana Gabriela Falcão, NEI International Relations Analyst, and one of the dedicated minds behind this remarkable event. At NEI, together with our Human Resources team, we are deeply committed to strengthening English language education and promoting internationalization at home. While exploring books and new ideas, we open our horizons and connect with the world. May this moment be one of the learning and inspiration for all, and together, let's build a more global and connected future. As we embark on this journey together, we would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Rector of the University of Fortaleza, Professor Dr. Randall Martins Pompeu, and Professor Dr. Gina Vidal Marcílio Pompeu, Coordinator of the Center for International Strategies. Their leadership and unwavering support for international programs like this are key to enriching our university and opening doors to the new horizons. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Camerata UNIFOR, you've just seen them, for the unwavering support and for the beautiful melodies that enrich this experience. With this special pride, we now welcome Professor Andelina Sena, Supervisor of the Student Academic Mobility at the Center for International Strategies and Advisor for the Education USA Office. For over 15 years, the partnership with the Education USA Office has been one of the forces behind the internationalization of our institution. Today, she will share her thoughts on the importance of supporting the academic and personal growth of our students and academic community through international pathways. Professor Lina.
Thank you, Gabriela. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming here this morning without the rain, but we are very happy to have all of you here. So, the presence of Education USA Office at UNIFOR is a strategic advantage strengthening academic internationalization. As a part of a global network of advising office linked to the U.S. Department of State with more than 400 offices around the world, Education USA provides official guidance on study opportunities in the United States. In Brazil, there's over 40 Education USA offices, all dedicated to offering accurate, comprehensive, and up-to-date information on higher education institutions in the U.S. At UNIFOR, the office offers guidance on undergraduate, graduate intensive English and short-term programs, and also provide supports through the admission process, from choosing to the right university to preparing for language proficiency exams, admissions tests, translations of academic documents, student visa, and pre-departure orientation. The commitment to excellence in further strength by UNIFOR International Test Center, which has been in operation since 2012. Has been a while. The Education USA office at UNIFOR also provides hosts lectures, international fairs, and workshops with representatives from American universities, including this event taking place this morning here. These initiatives expand opportunity for academic exchange and collaboration. A flagship event is the Education USA Roadshow Fair, which has become an important element in the official UNIFOR and Fortaleza events calendar. The fair remarks its 9th edition this year, in 2025. So everyone is welcome to register for the Education USA Roadshow Fair in Fortaleza, which will be held on April 10 at the Grand Marquis Hotel. It's open to the public. Everyone that has the opportunity to go are more than welcome to have the opportunity to talk to over 24 university representatives that will be there. As the Education USA office at UNIFOR remarks 15 years of operation, it continues to reinforce the university's commitment to academic excellence and global engagement by preparing students for success in increasingly competitive international environment. We have some flyers here for the Education USA Fair, if you want to register. So feel free to take some of it with you. So I want to thank you all for being here this morning. I hope this initiative from the NAE to be launched this event this morning, the book UNIFOR book branch, it will continue every month from now on. So everyone that is interested to be part of this program and improve the opportunity to speak in English by discussing some books, like the event we are having here today with our guests. Thank you all for being here this morning.
Gotta stuck with me again. It is with special pride that we now welcome, We are delighted to welcome Professor Dr. Jeremy Slagowski, Director of the Applied Language Institute at University of Missouri of Kansas City, an expert in language teaching and instructional design with over 25 years of global experience. Currently researching AI in language learning, he brings invaluable insights today. In this instance, Giselle Viana, a member of our NAE team, will read an excerpt from a text chosen by our guest, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, by Ursula K. Le Guin. Gi?
Good morning. Ursula K. Le Guin was an American author, best known for her works of science and fiction. Her writing often explored themes of gender, society, and the human condition, blending imaginative world-binding with deep philosophical questions. Le Guin is perhaps the most famous for her Earthsea series and her novel, The Left Hand of the Darkness, which is considered a classic of speculative fiction. Throughout her career, she received numerous awards, including the Hugo, Nebula, and Locus Award. Le Guin's works have been a lasting impact on genre, and continue to influence readers and writers around the world. This profound and thought-provoking tale challenges us to reflect on the power of choice, fairness, and the deep moral complexities of sacrifice in society. I'm going to read now an excerpt from the text Professor Jeremy chose, okay? This is usually explained to children when they are between 8 and 12, whenever they seem capable of understanding, and most of those who come to see the child are young people, though often enough an adult comes back to see the child. No matter how well the matter has been explained to them, these young spectators are always shocked and sickened at the sight. They feel disgust, which they had thought themselves superior to. They feel anger, outrage, impotence, despite all the explanations. They would like to do something for the child, but there is nothing they can do. If the child were brought up into the sunlight out of the vile place, if it were cleaned and fed and comforted, that would be a good thing indeed. But if it were done, in that day and hour, all the prosperity and beauty and delight of Amalas would either be destroyed. These are the terms. To exchange all the goodness and grace of every living Amalas for that single small improvement, to throw away the happiness of 1,000 for the chance of the happiness of one. That would be to let guilt within the walls indeed.
What a thought-provoking moment. Dr. Slagowski will now engage in a conversation with our very own professor, Dr. Robson Luiz Batista Ramos, a UNIFOR professor, linguistic, and educator. We will also like to emphasize the distinguished participation of Professor Dr. Ayla Sampaio, a doctor in comparative literature, faculty member at the Center for Communication and Management Sciences at UNIFOR.
Wait. So, good morning to you all. Welcome to the book brunch. I'm very honored to be part of this initiative for provide more opportunities to us to practice English. You know, we have been ahead of the internationalization process for some years. We were the first university here to provide courses fully in English. We now have most 35 courses being taught right now exclusively in English, and we are trying to expand with many more experiences and have the Professor Slagowski today here is a very interesting because he has been studying the English teaching for other cultures like Japan, Korea, China, and some other, which particularly for me it's difficult because when they think about their system of language, a diagrammatic way, it's much more difficult than to us. So I'm very honored as a linguist to be at your side today to discuss this fantastic short story. And thank you for the selection. It's a unique way to think, and I think like literature is mostly for that. The opportunity to explore new worlds, new possibilities, new things, maybe with a fresh eyes of some others else. So I will skip some parts of my presentation because they was previously discussed, and after there's no problem, I can share this with you, okay? Basically, starting point, the short stories are nothing that old as literature, but nothing so new as well. When you think about the short stories and how they became popular, we're back to the 19th century. So we have great short story writers like Kafka, also Maupassant, and then we come in different countries, French, England, mostly in the English-speaking countries as well. And then in Brazil, we also have this, but more related to magazines and newspaper, which is a funny fact because in the past we had specifically magazines to publish short stories, as you have in America, for example, but now these days we use much more internet and other networks to share this. So it's actually a a new thing for literature. And probably our most famous short writer is Machado de Assis, as you know, one of the best ones. And then I also would like to have this opportunity to honor two great short story writers. The first one is Alison Munro's. She was a Canadian writer, and she recently passed away. So I also invite you to know her writings, very inspiring, and also a Brazilian one, Marina Colasanti, who is also fantastic. I don't know if you had the chance to read it. This is only in Portuguese. We have some translations to English, but mostly since we can read in our own language, I'm also inviting you to know the fantastic work of this great writer. And then we finally got to Ursula. I will skip this part because we also discussed this. She passed away in 2018, as we know, and her whole career was driven for what people refer as being fantasy or science fiction. And then I would like to skip to this part because this is one of her famous novels, The Left Side of the Dark, and there is a specific introduction she wrote to it, and she started to discuss, because when the serious literature writers discuss fantasy or science fiction, usually they approach as a thing for amusement, entertainment, how it not necessarily so deep as the other types of work of art. And in this introduction, I will skip a lot of these parts, but you have the chance, it's also available online. She has a very interesting debate about how is this. So I would like to start in quoting this. Science fiction is often described, I just need my phone because. So science fiction is often described and even defined as extrapolative. The science fiction writer is supposed to take a trend or phenomenon to here and now, purify it, and intensify it for dramatic effect, and extend it onto the future. If it goes on, this is what will happen. A prediction is made. Science fiction is not predictive, is descriptive. Predictions are uttered by prophets, by clairvoyants, by futurologists. Prediction is the business of prophets, clairvoyants, and futurologists. It's not the business of a novelist. A novelist's business is lying. And I love this part because it makes me remember this essay by Mario Vargas Llosa, which is a collection of his past publications. And the first one is literally The Truth of Lies. And Vargas Llosa provides us a very interesting perspective because probably with all authors, the very first question is, when did it happen to you, or how does idea come to your mind? Is it true what is written there? And also there's this fetish about how much real that work of art should be. And then he said, actually, novels do lie because it's the thing. So when a writer writes about something, it's not the reality, but it's a recreation using language to do that. So because of this, probably it's a thing, it's related to truth, but it's not committed to truth, as the newspaper or other essays, for example. So that's the thing. Novels, and here we can extrapolate for literature, for example, it's not written to recount, but to transform. So it's a way we can do to do new things, what maybe past things are done. And I will skip, because I would like to this, and most for Latin American writers, we have this label, as we have been studying, for example, Garcia Marques and many other also Brazilian writers under this cover as fantastic literature. But actually, fantastic is the life. Fantastic is the thing that's going on here in this side, in the south. And fantastics are we with the things we do to survive and to thrive. So actually, maybe because of this, the label of fantastic short stories, fantastic novels, fantastic romances, actually because they tell the story of our people, and we are fantastic in this way. So I think it's not exactly a good thing, because when you relate it fantastic, it's like, oh, something that's not happening in reality, but actually it's probably what happened in our everyday lives. And so, let's skip to this part. I would like to suggest you this book, which is by Francine Prose, Reading Like a Writer. She is also a writer. She taught courses for literature and creative writing, and I don't remember exactly her university right now. But I would like to focus with you in these tips, okay? So the number one is the close reading. What is the close reading? It's reading very carefully. So the first line of the first paragraph, for example, the opening line, it's a very interesting because the writer decided to start by that. So why this and not any other? The second one is the choice, because when we write, we do choices every time. So we choose that specific word, we choose use that expression. Why that expression and no any other? Also, sentence and syntax, it's important, but I must remind you that literature is art, so it's not literally committed to the rules of grammar and other things, but the way I put things, the sentences, can also mean. So it's important for we to take into consideration. The structures for paragraphs, so we will discuss this. How is it organized? Because usually a paragraph is an idea. So how is this structure? How many paragraphs? Is it a long paragraph? The first paragraph of the short story is a very long one, for example. Why? Why don't break it in 2 or 3? So probably it's also a thing for we to consider. And last but not least, the details. So we must keep about the words, the descriptions, the things have been used there as well. And then we finally, I'm sorry for this long, in my mind it was very fast. This fantastic short story suggested by Professor Zlagowski, and Giselle already introduced. So I just would like to add, in some of these publications, it officially published in 1973. In some of their publications, you have the subtitle Variations of a Theme by William James. And William James was a psychologist, and he decided to study the utilitarianism and pragmatism in societies. And then we may also think about how this is a background for all this discussion the soul story goes on. So now, since I speak a very, very long time, I would like to start with the first paragraph, and then Professor Zlagowski, very welcome to go with your pacing for paragraph the way you prefer. Yes.
All right. So we have the first paragraph here, and yeah.
To the first line.
Yeah. So would you like me to read it? And
It's just for you to do your bit.
okay.
If you can read it, you can read it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll read it so you can get into the mood. So, with the clamor of bells that set the swallows soaring, the festival of summer came to the city Omelas, bright towered by the sea. It's a very descriptive sentence, and lots of, it brings a lot of imagery to your mind. And I know some of these words we don't use often in daily life, so I'm just wondering if, if this sentence is helpful for you, or if it's kind of complex, too difficult for you with the vocabulary that she chose. Yes. Yeah, so swallows, usually when we learn the word swallow, we think of, when we drink something, we swallow something, but in here it's a type of bird. Yeah.
And I was joking that the last time I read Claymore probably was on the Bible, so there is a very serious thing here. And also the decision to start presenting the city in a festival, so it's a time for celebration, people are happy. So I think this starting point is very unique to the way to present things. And here there's a thing for the narrator. I think it's very, after a long descriptive part, the narrator started to, in a lines, question. So in the first, we have this more descriptive part, so an external, and then it goes through being a more speculative idea. So it decided to question. So how is the one to tell about joy? How to describe the citizen of Amelas? And then when we put this way, we can see actually it's an equation. So joy equals to the citizens of Amela. They are the representation of this happiness, this joy. So we have all this atmosphere for a summer, which is probably the most enthusiastic season to do things, you know, and also this celebration, this happiness, kids, and so on.
Yes. Should we say something?
Yes. And here we have a part where the narrator starts to put itself in the narrative. So when we have this part, in my woods, so, and I think that's here, not maybe a sarcastic, but something, because we have this, it's like a fairy tale, and we have this keys when we are teaching English to our students. Sometimes we have this we call chunks. So for example, all of you in the first class would be, hi, my name is, put your name here. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. And so sometimes we have keys for reading. So every time you find once upon a time, to the reader, I'm prepared to listen about a fantastic story, some allegory, some thing related to fairy tales. So I think it's very interesting because the narrator here used this, and then it started to engage in an interaction with the potential reader to say, you can imagine this. So it starts a dialogue with the reader, so to speak, in order to say, and also we start to saying that some things I cannot suit you all. So also saying that, okay, please imagine and describe that. So this is the definition. The people of Malaz are happy people. So there is a very stress on this characteristic and quality for these people. So Professor, what do you think about this depiction and how, for example, now we have more simple structures. I think the descriptive one was maybe most difficult due to the specificities. Is a city close to the sea, maybe some of these vocabulary is specific to the season or to the region. But now I think it moves to a more, not regular, but maybe standard language, because now we grounded at this setting, and now we move to the description itself of these people. So what do you think about this? There's this definition for happiness, and I think it was a very good one. So happiness is based on discrimination. What is necessary, what is neither necessary nor destructive, and what is destructive in the middle category. However, that is a necessary but undestructive. And this is not a common English language. Actually should be non-destructive, for example. So we have a neologism here, and this relationship about comfort, luxury, and then the narrator started to discuss about technology and machines and things. So it moves to a different perspective, talking about how this comfort and how they were happy in comfort. So how do you think about this helps to construe this setting for this material?
Yeah, I think, Ursula Le Guin does start, when you read especially the first half of the short story, it does start, you are kind of assaulted with the rich description, as you mentioned, and then it turns into the theme of happiness. These people are very, happy and they're enjoying the festival, but when you're reading it, and like when I was first reading it, I'm like, what's the point? Well, these people are very happy. Why should I care? So, but it keeps you, her style of writing you know that there's something that she's going to reveal later. So I kind of like that when I was reading this. Like it's drawing me in, even though she's keeping it a mystery in the first half. Of there's happiness, and she kind of gives you the perspective of an outsider as well. You're looking at this. You're not from Omelas as the reader, and are you happy that they're happy, or are you concerned or that they're happy? So kind of like the anthropologist mindset. Yes. Yeah, I chose this for several reasons, but I think one is like this made a big when you mentioned pick a short story. I was thinking of what short story impacted me in high school, because I read a lot of short stories in high school, and this was one. And I wanted to make sure it was relevant to today, because maybe it's not, but rereading it, oh yes, it's very, very relevant to today. And right now I have a daughter in high school right now. And when I told her, I was thinking of her when I picked this story as well. And then when I picked it, I didn't know she knew this story. And she's like, "Oh, you mean that story with?" I'm not gonna. She knew the ending. Yeah, and then she, gave me the approval. But I think it's helpful as like a young, in high school you're older than these kids here, somewhat older, but it's still when you're coming of age, you're realizing like, oh. Especially if you have a good life, not everyone has a good life, but if, I was middle class American, so I thought most people in the world were happy. And then when you get a little older, you're realizing, well, why are some people happy when things aren't so great? Yeah. So, and I think, I thought of my daughter too, because I saw the moment when my daughter realized that the world is not always a happy place. And her, she was like maybe 11 or 10, 12 years old, and just, as a father, seeing that realization of how the world can be cruel, is kind of, devastating to me as a father, but, it's a learning process. I'm not going to protect her from what's in the world. She's at the age of 12, she can start learning. So I think I picked this as both a father and also reflecting on my own childhood.
And I think now it's to start a more moral discussion, because when the narrator describes the situation and how people are, now it's describing like, oh, we have this music, the sounds, the smiles, the processions, everything. And then also maybe a more seductive strategy. So for you, if you think about orgies, you can add one. Don't hesitate about that. And I think this is a very important thing, because here there is a kind of a meaning thing, because if you are, and Giselle introducing Ursula also stressed she was also a feminist writer. So that's this point for, and she used this term copulations, which is very biological one. So no love, nothing related to that, just a thing you must do to for offspring. And then here probably one of the worst parts, by worst I mean the meaning one, it's like after all this happiness, these kids that were born from this period, they will be very good treated. They will be beloved and looked after by all people of MLS. So now it started to say, wow, they take care of their kids, they take care of everything. And here is a very important part, because it's the first time the narrators say they don't know what is guilty. So this sense of feeling guilty about something, because allegedly they do not do something wrong. They don't have police, they don't have assassinations, any type of crime, so they don't know what it is to be guilty for something. And I think this is a very important part where the story starts to turn to this more moral discussion, and then also discuss a thing about drugs. So there is I think it's Dross, the name of the drug. So she even created the hypothetical drug for people. So if you want to be on a high and things, so there is Dross. And the narrator also say, but if you don't that thing, you also can have your beer. I think also a criticize for both legal and illegal drugs, a discussion we have as a society for a long time. And today I think it's a very interesting part. So there's a thing, again, about this narrator who is coming and discussing, and every time it do questions, it's very interesting. So this one is, what else belong in this joyous city? And again, this specific word, the sense of victory, the celebration of courage, but as did without clergy, because when the narrators explain, they may have priests, but they don't want clergy. Let's do without soldiers, so they don't have armies, they don't have fights or any other war-related things. The joy built upon successful slaughter is not the right kind of the joy. It will not do. It's fearful. It's trivial. So also we have this judgment, this assessment for some types of joy. So sometimes we have joys, we have happiness, but they don't come from the right things. So also a philosophical discussion about maybe some people feel pleasure and happy coming from wrong moral things, so to speak. And then there's a thing about make us the atmosphere coming through this religious, because you have a procession. And in the first paragraph, the procession was in a part of the town, and then it comes through the most region they call the green fields. And now we have a change in the narrative, because it's exactly when there is this moment, they are in a procession, and they see, or some of the narrators see a child, and he's playing a flute, and everyone stopped to see that, and no one is speaking because he's very focused on that activity. But I also makes me remind how the magic of the music and the joy, and it makes me remind the Piper of Hamelin, also how this everything, this magical atmosphere related to that. And then the narrator also questions, so do you believe? Do you accept? Because now we are probably about to discover. So do you accept the festival, the city, the joy, everything you see so far? It's okay for you, the reader. No? So let me describe one more thing. And then we do the discovery. So in a basement, there are a child, and the child is being kept there. So no communication, no other people related. So it started to, we have like the first part of the narrative is a very bright one. Everyone is happy, singing, celebrating, and now we discover this thing hidden in the basement. So, Professor Zlagowski, here we have this turning point, and it started to maybe, as you just said, you was in shock as a father to maybe your daughter are now discovering that people can be also cruel. So how do you think this changing started to announce for the narrative and the things we'd like to, we probably will discover in the next thing? Oh, yes, sorry.
Hi, there's a passage that was very important to me at the beginning, that she said, the trouble is that we have a bad habit, encouraged by pedants and sophisticates, of considering happiness as something rather stupid. Only pain is intellectual, and only evil is interest. And I remember the phrase as you speak initially, that why do I care that these people are happy? And then I felt the same way starting reading. I read that for the first time today, and I was reading, and I was like, why do I care that these people are happy? And then that phrase really stuck to me because I do feel that way very often when I'm reading fantastic things that usually we start to get emotional, encouraged, and more involved in the story when the happiness ends and things start to get brutal. And that happens in this short story, that it starts to get interested when she starts to ask this question, like, do you believe in that happiness? And everything changes in that moment. So I would like to point that out because that phrase in specific really stuck to me when I was reading. I marked it because I never saw anyone put into words, and I never reflected on how happiness is not that stupid. Happiness is not stupid. Anyway.
Yes, I like that. You know, that's the kind of a clue of what's coming up next. You know that something ominous is approaching. Yes. Yeah, and also when you were mentioning it too, like when you read a story and everyone's happy, you're not interested because they're kind of one-dimensional characters. You know that they're not human. So you even feel like I cannot relate to these people because my society's not like that. We have happy times, but we're not always happy, you know. So I think it's also, in the beginning, it kind of tricks me. Like I was thinking I'm watching a cartoon, like for kids at first. But then it asks these weird questions, you know, like, okay, that's not for kids, you know, and then suddenly it gets, you know, really, really dark. But, yeah. But as you...
Sorry. Do you have a question? Yes.
I was reading a work these days called Split Fiction. And in this work, they treat science fiction and fantasy like opposite ideas, antagonists. And I didn't agree with this. And I think that's your opinion too. Yes?
Yeah. So you're talking about yes. Yeah, fantasy and science fiction are, yeah, they can be very different, but I think Ursula Le Guin does a very good job of kind of combining this. You know, this is more... Yes.
But she can work with both ways of writing, so maybe she can use them.
Yes. Yeah, the middle ground, I think people like the term speculative fiction. It's a little fantasy, you know, a little science fiction.
And now, while you were discussing, I realized there is no name. No one is named. So we only know there are people, there is the child, no names, and including the ones who walk away, we don't know them. So it's a very typical strategy when a writer wants to discuss a situation approach and generally, so we don't identify the character, we don't qualify it, we just say it's a man, it's a woman, it's a kid, it's a child, a young one, and so on. And then, Giselle, I think you need to use the micro for the recording.
Excuse me. Do you think that it is a strategy the author uses and it works also to make you distance from that people, to distance you from that people, but also to, in some way, you kind of still identify with them? Because even though there are no names, you can still, at the end, you feel like, oh, it's pretty up to date to today's society. I feel like it could be very, it pushes you away, but it brings you closer at the same time. What do you think? What you two think about it?
Yeah, I think the purpose of her not making us relate is so it's easier for us to judge, you know. So she's like making it kind of, you know, tricking us into judging them. Oh, these terrible people. But then after, when you read it, like, well, you know how fiction is, it's a reflection of our own society. So then it's going to make the reader uncomfortable. Does the reader want to think, oh no, this is not my society, this is some other planet, some other, but then, you know, does the reader have a critical mind to think, no, she's writing about where we are now in a metaphorical way? And I think that makes us, not all of us, but, you know, some of us uncomfortable, especially when you're in, like when I'm in high school, you know, am I allowed to be that critical and judgmental, you know, of my own society? I don't think, you know, as a high schooler, I'm like, is my society as cruel as Omelas, or is it worse? You know, so that's kind of too much for me when I was in high school. I mean, I can think about it critically now, but I just remember that was probably the biggest impact of thinking, what's the equivalent to the child in my society? Yeah, and I remember my teacher just left it that way. She didn't tell us. She just said, you think about it, and that was it. So,
A good teacher for sure. We have another one.
Yeah. Good morning. Something I noticed about the city of Omelas is that it feels like the anti-Shire from Lord of the Rings. You know, something you mentioned before about happy and, you know, joyous characters feeling very one-dimensional. I agree. I think struggle and I think hardships make characters feel more fleshed out and three-dimensional. And the story does make me feel very uncomfortable because it mentions that they're happy and that things are fine, but at the same time they have no king. They seem to have no real purpose. The children are happy, but at the same time they're not. So it feels like the anti-Shire. And speaking of the Shire from Lord of the Rings, I think those little hobbits, those little people, are very happy. They have their flaws, but it's a very happy society that you wish you could live in. It's a very comfortable place to live, unlike Omelas. And I just wanted to know more about what you think of this fictitious town of Omelas, because like you said before, it feels like someplace that could exist. And at the same time, it feels like a horrible, hellish place that shouldn't exist. Does it remind you of anything from your past? Like it reminded me of the Shire, for example?
yeah,
That's a little bit too personal, I'm sorry. I was just wondering.
Yeah, it reminds me of several things. I mean, for me, when I was younger, I equated it to like a cartoon, and I was thinking, I don't know if you know the Christmas when the Whoville, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. So I just thought of, you know, these people are always happy. This, you know, but for them, you know, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas is simpler because, you know, the bad guy's out there. He's the Grinch. He's not in this town. So I think it's just a simpler, happier Christmas story. You know, this cannot be a Christmas story. So, but I mean, when I read the first part, I just thought, oh, these people are just like, you know, the Who's from Whoville. Yeah, but I wouldn't. Because I also didn't want to be in Whoville myself. So I didn't want to be in Omelas, and I did not want to be in Whoville. You know, but I think Omelas is worse. Yes.
Just back to Giselle. This is an information I don't share, but I am actually. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, no.
It's just a little comment. I totally agree with you about the like happiness, and I'm a psychology student, so we do like study a lot about subjective. And for me, what's most bothering about the happiness that she portrays in this part is like happiness is such a subjective theme. Like, what's happiness for me? It's not what's happiness for you. And it seems like everyone has the same idea of happiness in this part of the book. So, what do you guys think about like, is this too psychology student like point of view, or you do feel like this kind of bothers when you read? Like, how do you know that they are all happy in this kind of society? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, I was raised in two different religions. I went from one religion to another, and when you change, you compare the happiness of both, but it kind of feels a little creepy, you know, when you compare, like, are they really happy? You know, it's just, so I felt like that the subjective, like, of belonging to, like, I'll feel happy if I belong there, but if I'm observing someone being happy, I can't be happy because I'm not accepted, I'm not part of that group. So it makes me, you know, the subjective part is, I think, also, you know, if one person tells you you're happy, you're like, oh, I'm happy for you, and you can kind of believe one person being happy. But if the whole society's, or someone says this whole society is happy, then you're like, oh, I don't know. So it's harder to accept a group to say 100% of us are happy, or usually happy.
Hi, good morning. I love science fiction. It's one of my favorite type genre, and I usually think that science fiction always has these tropes. I think that questions you about your choices, our choices, and the consequences of our choice. I think it is a common ground on all science fiction books. Usually, it is something, even if it's a little bit, but it's a common theme that I usually found in science fiction. Just because of this is one of my favorite genres.
Yeah, I would agree and say I would add it's good science fiction. So there is some bad science fiction that you can't relate to, and I have to be critical of like the new Star Wars movies, but you know, yeah, they're like, I think the original Star Wars movies you can relate to them, and then the newer ones you want to relate, but there's some weird reason you can't. They're Who's the author? Okay. Okay.
So I will try to remember every information, but probably I will miss some. Giselle question about if this is a strategy, and I will disclosure this information. I don't share too much, but I'm also a short story writer. Here also have Professor Ayla. She's also a great writer as well. So it's a strategy when we want to focus not in a specific character. We want to focus about what is happening. So usually in short stories, probably people are not necessarily nominated. Maybe you can qualify them by their professions or by their position. So it's the father, it's the lawyer, it's the man responsible for that building, and things goes on. About the concept of happiness, I think in that paragraph we have the definition of what's being happiness. So happiness is I have all my, and here I will use a concept usually I think in psychology used as well, and in management, the Maslow pyramid. So I have all my basic needs. So we can imagine that in this idyllic utopian society, all my basic needs are there. And we are celebrating because it's summer. So it's happiest moment for the life. And about that concept that is happiness so stupid, because there's this critique like, oh, the philosophers love pain, suffering, and things. This is deep, this is profound, this is to be praised. We have a lot of books written about how do you can get through a very specific, difficult situation, but we don't have many books about how to be happy or how to be in this continuous stage of happiness. Personally, I don't believe it's possible, because suffering is also a part of life. And I think in a way or another, this is in this definition, but by the text moves to a different, and now we go to the maybe one of the most horrible descriptions. So we started with that joyful light and bright and shine and people happy in the processions, and now we have the description from the place where this child is being kept. So as you see, now we have the quite opposite from the first paragraph. So now it's dark, it's dirty, it stinks, it's a prison, so there is no light. And actually, as I don't know exactly why, but she decided to say it could be a boy or a girl. And now my teacher of English will go out to explain that could, it's a modal verb, so actually it could be, I don't know if it's a boy. And now it probably the most difficult part for me as a reader, because the pronoun is it for all others. So I try to underline every time the narrator describes the child, it's using the pronoun. And as a teacher, we always say, oh, he is for a man, she is for girl, and then we have it, we use for things, for animals, for general statements, because in English we have always to put the subject. So it's a cold day, it's a winter season, and so on. But now every pronoun, every description is related to this thing. So there is a dehumanization process, and there is the description of this place, dark, it stinks, and for me, one of the worst parts is here when we describe become imbecile through fear, malnutrition, neglected. So if we compare to that, people very happy who take care of all their children, and they stop on the street to listen, a child playing with his flute, and all of them are very concerned about that. So now we start to see a dark side, so to speak. And I think in the last part, the door is always locked, so nobody ever comes. So it's like, it's a complete loneliness situation. And then it moves to saying, well, sometimes we have people, they go there to see this situation. I don't know if I can even call this a situation. But then they just left. So they go and out probably to feed this child. And then also say that, and this one of the most shocking parts, this child, I don't know if he is or she saying, I'll be good, please, back, I'll be good, I promise I'll be good. And then maybe the first attempt to provide a humanization for this description, say he or she remembers his or her mother voice, so saying, so I will be good, please stay with me. So we can even realize how traumatic experiences this kid has been passing through to this. And then after that, a scene, a depiction of it's naked. So not even clothes. So no dignity, no treatment. And this last part for it sits and it's on excrement continually. So where are all these happy and joy people when you can have at the same time this situation so shocking? It's disturbing for sure. And then the revelation, like that people, they all know. So the narrator stress all the people of MLS know that situation because they all know that it has to be there. And again, my teacher of English will comes out to say in English, this expression, this verb, have to, and this use, it declares an obligation, a thing I can not do. So it's like all people of Amala know that situation, and all of them know it will exist. It existed before, it exists right now, and will exist. Okay, just him, and then I think you. Okay.
I think I finally figured out why Omelas creeps me out so much, because it's a collage of some of the most horrible things that have happened throughout human history, but also about some of the problems that a lot of societies still face today. As it says there, they all know that it has to be there. Some of them understand why, some do not. So this reminds me a lot of utilitarianism, sorry if I mispronounced it, and the use of a scapegoat, something that you can plant all of your problems and blame on. And I think it says a lot that it's a child that has to bear all of these burdens. It reminds me of what people do in Asian countries. The youth there is burdened by this constant need to perform excellently in academics, and they don't have the luxury of living healthy childhoods and adolescence. And the town of Omelas also reminds me of maybe a war-torn town in Eastern Europe after World War II, where the children were left as orphans. And there's all of these little things throughout human history that seem to have found a way to Omelas, and that's why it makes me so uncomfortable. The lack of a real clergy presence reminds me of the Soviet Union. The lack of religion reminds me of that. No rule reminds me of a people that have no guidance. All of these things make me super uncomfortable. Do you agree? Do you see these parallels in Omelas as well?
Yes. So, especially when I read this passage here, I'm from the United States, and I was in my 20s during the war in Iraq, and we had Abu Ghraib. I don't know if you remember Abu Ghraib, when the United States tortured people, and it was almost like this, and I was, some Americans were, as disgusted as me, but others were not as disgusted, and for me, that's when I felt a lot like, oh, because we're torturing these people, we can have a happy society, and that's what it just made me feel uncomfortable, that same thing. But I didn't think the United States would ever do anything like this, and that's when I thought, oh, we are like Omelas, in what was that, the year 2005, 2006 when that happens. So, yeah, and I know that the United States has come, somewhat came to some justice for that, but it's not completely. We haven't completely come to a resolution from Abu Ghraib. But I know a lot of if you ask a lot of Americans, they don't want to talk about it. It's just, But it happens. When you mentioned, a year ago, I was in Romania, and when you mentioned Eastern Europe, and Romanians don't like to talk about the 1990s because it's the same feeling.
When you were talking about the dehumanization of the child lock, I also remember that even though the person locked inside is described as a child, we have through the text the passage of time, like they say, like teenagers come and they get discussed, but as they grow older, they understand that that's supposed to happen, even though it's always a child inside. Like the time passes for the omulus, but do not pass for the child, because, and I find this very intriguing, because it could be any person in there and that would hurt and that would be discussed the same, but as a child is more sensitive and brings out or empathy more, because we have the mindset that we need to protect the child because she needs protection. And even though the time passes for the people in Omala and teenagers become adults, but the child is so always a child locked inside the prison.
Yeah, I also when I first read this story in high school, I read this in the same week or month as The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. So I thought, since I confused those two stories, a little bit, I thought maybe the town had like a lottery for who's the next kid. But I know I just confused. I was in high school, but I thought, it's the science fiction element too. Does this child never age? Yes. Yeah, I almost picked it for this one, but this one made a bigger impact on me. But so what it represents, the child, it brings out more empathy, as you said.
And moving to the story, so here we have an information. Some of them understand why, so there's a reason, and some of them understand, and some do not. And then Giselle previously read this understanding, so they understand that everything they have, all magical and all happiness, everything they have it's directly related to this condition for that human being. So this child, abominable misery. And then it's the passage our student only explained that it's like also like a rite of passage. I introduce this situation to the children when they are in the age to understand, when they seem, and here also a modal verb, they seem capable to understanding. And it's nice, this part, because as she previously stressed, they go there, they see the situation, but usually passing through all this time, it's like they forgot this. They are not most sensitive to that situation. And then it's interesting because for some people, not all of them, but for some people, no matter how you explain the reasons and everything related to that, they are so shocked, they are so uncomfortable with all of that they would like to do. And also, again, a modal verb. I would like to. It's not a real thing for now. It's possible. It's a thing I thought I would like to. But there's nothing they can do. So we also have the impossibility in some situations as individuals. So when you have some situations as society, for example, we all know we have things to, and especially, and I think America and Brazil share this society agenda for this century about racism, about sexism, and about homophobia. And here I'm referring to all non-straight and other groups. So we have this agenda. We know it's happening, but as an individual, I know I have no power, for example, to turn any situation. I may take some individual actions, like being anti-racist person, try to discuss and help people, or use my resources to share information as a professor, as a teacher, for example. This is one of our roles for society. But as individual, I can't do much. So I think there is a feeling of resignation. I know it's wrong. I know it has to stop. Someone needs to change the situation, but no one has the power to do so. So I think this is a very intriguing moment, because it's where we know this, and then we have this discussion. So let's pretend someone released this kid. So what would happen? Probably could be good, but remember the description, he is also not in his or her cognitive abilities. So probably, okay, he or she can have some sunlight and a more decent food and clothing, but at what cost? And then it started that question. So what is the cost of all this happiness and these things we have here? And then everything for Omelas would be destroyed. And we are facing that, probably the philosophical question posed in the referring to William James thing, which is it worthy to destroy this happiness for, I don't know how many, remember, we don't have numbers, so I know it's a whole city, maybe a civilization. Destroy their happiness for one person. So, and these calculations usually are very sensitive. It's one person worthy to take responsibility for all this disgraces and things like that. And I like this expression, because terms, so those are the terms. It reminds me a contract, and then we can relate to the social contract, because we all are, sometimes the students complain, no, I never signed any contract. Okay, but you were born in humanity, and as societies, we all share this. It's a thing like, you don't need to sign it, you are inheriting this situation, so we need to deal with it. And it reminds me, so those are the terms. So if you want to live here, if you want to be here, those are the terms. Take it or leave it. And then that's it. Throw away all this happiness, everything we achieved for one. And I don't even know if I can call person, because we don't know his or her thing. And maybe another shocking moment, because sometimes children, when they are exposed to this situation constantly, and maybe because of that, this is a rite of passage, they disclose the situation to the children, so they get acquainted to that term. So they all remember, all people of Amela know that situation. All they accepted the situation. All of them are responsible for that situation. Even if I'm not the person who's locking the door, I'm not the person who choose this specific child, I don't know, but I am equally responsible. So there's a debate here about how we also are accountable for things we do not directly engaged, but since I'm not taking any position against that, I'm also accountable for that. And I think here is a very sensitive topic about this text. And then this part, a very strong one, their tears at the bitter injustice dry, when they begin to perceive the terrible justice of reality and to accept it. Yet it's their tears and anger, the trying of their generosity and the acceptance of their helplessness, which are perhaps the true source of the splendor of their lives. Theirs is no vapid, irresponsible happiness. They know what they, like the child, are not free. They know compassion. So now the narrator is trying to do, they are not insensitive. They actually know that they know the feeling, the compassion. They are also happy. And then this existence of this child is also not only the existence, but the knowledge about it, the situation. So we have everything related to that, to this fantastic society, their celebrations, the festival. Everyone is only possible due to this hidden and maybe dark fact. And again, the narrator questions, now do you believe? So now do you believe them? Are they more credible? Because in the very first one, everyone is happy, and now, so do you really believe in these happy people? Do you really think they are nice and shine and brighter they were in the first paragraph? And then, but there is one more thing to tell, and this is quite incredible. So after all of this, the narrator say, well, there's something I would like to tell you. So we are expecting, so maybe something worse. And now we know. So I will read because it's the last part, so I will ask you to have patience. At times, one of the adolescent girls or boys who go to see the child does not go home to weep or rage, does not, in fact, go home at all. Sometimes, also, a man or woman much older falls silent for a day or two and then leaves home. These people go out into the street and walk down the street alone. And here's the first time we see this word alone. In all other pictures, people are together in groups. They keep walking and walk straight out of the city of Omelas through the beautiful gates. Even the gates are beautiful there. They keep walking across the farmlands of Omelas. Each one goes alone, youth or girl, man or woman. Night falls, so no more sun, no more light. Now it's night. Night falls. The traveler must pass down village streets between the houses with yellow windows and on out into the darkness of the fields. And so we have the title, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omala. So now we know the title thing. And I'd like to introduce you, in linguistics we have a branch for cognitive studies, and this is one of the most famous book, Metaphors We Live By. We have a lot of metaphors associated here, and one of the pairs, it's like the physical experiences we engage also shape the way I understand reality. And they explore different pairs, so time is money, and there's a relationship, for example, between light is good, dark is bad. So we can have all these metaphors and references for knowledge and ignorance. So the knowledge is the light, and because of this, for example, French people usually like to refer to enlightenment process. Also, dark is to be in the dark. I am the dark. So the dark spot and things like that. There's an association for morality and ethics. So a bright idea, a brilliant idea. And also for hope and despair, a ray of hope. John describing Jesus when he said, I am the light of the world. So the light is the salvation. And of course, truth and deception as well. So we also have all these pairs being related. So now we have this people going to this dark place. They are leaving this everything they share because they can't handle, they can't stand with that heavy situation. And then each one alone, they go west or north towards the mountains. They go on. They leave MLS. They walk ahead into the darkness, and they do not come back. The place they go towards is a place even less imaginable to most of us than the city of happiness. I cannot describe it all. It's possible that it does not exist, but they seem to know where they are going, the ones who walk away from MLS. And I think we are out of time. Yes. So just to show you, I researched for, there is a illustrator, he described many, so this is a trifer depiction from the Omala city. This is the child here, and you have all, so here the green fields, and here the places, and here you have the connection for these dark places where they are supposed to go through. And just to finish, I will show you all of this. Also to quote William James, philosophy, like life, must keep the door and windows open. And I think in this morning we could also discuss about how is important we know our own actions. So one thing is keep the door open. Another completely different thing is leave. So keep implies an action. And so thank you, Professor Zlagowski, for the opportunity to have these reflections here. I feel very grateful for all this. I think our audience as well. And thank you for your contributions. It was very constructive, and I hope we can enjoy other moments. You are all invited to the next sessions for the book brunch, okay? And I think now Professor Zlagowski will do his final lines, and then we go to Gabriela, okay?
So thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking with you just a bit about this short story. I would say wonderful, but I don't know if that's the right word for the short story. Yeah, but it was great talking with you, and I hope to talk with you again in the future.
I would like, this is the first book brunch we are doing, and I'm a huge fan of book clubs. Me and Rafaela. So I would like to do a little experiment. We have a brunch, of course, over there, so we are all invited to have a snack or two. And I left a little paper, so feel free to give some options or suggest small books or short stories for our next sessions. And what I want to say is a warm thank you to you, Professor Zlagowski, for sharing his wisdom and insights with us today. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn from someone with such an expansive global perspective. As we wrap it up today's event, we'd like to extend our deepest thanks to everyone who made the inaugural meeting of the Book Brunch Club UNIFOR, Giselle, Professor Lina, the people from Human Resources. A special thank to you, those who are involved in the organization of this gathering. It's been an extraordinary effort, and we are truly grateful. So there's a paper over there, so write your suggestions for the next sessions, and we want to thank you all for coming.